Evening, everyone. We're in my backyard today. I thought a change of scenery would be nice, and we're here to talk about stalkers. I've had 4 of them in my life, 3 girls and 1 boy. I'm going in chronological order. As you can imagine, the boy stalker was the worst, and he will be last, the last one we talk about. So stay around to hear that story. But before we begin, first, stalkers are a serious problem. Don't take any of it lightly. So let's define a stalker so we know. A stalker is someone who engages in repeated unwanted patterns of behavior directed at a specific person, causing the victim to feel harassed, distressed, and fearful for their safety. Okay? They're generally defined by the following characteristics: unwanted conduct and repeated following, watching, contacting, obsessive pursuit, not a one-time event, none of mine were. Emotional impact, they are intrusive and it causes harm, emotional harm, okay? And then common stalking behaviors are digital harassment. Fortunately, all of mine were pre-cell phone, so I didn't really have any of that, but it is a problem now. Physical following, I've definitely had that with most of them. Intrusion, sending unwanted gifts, leaving notes. No one gave me gifts. Come on, what is wrong with my stalkers? Some gifts would be nice, okay? Surveillance, they would follow me around. They would know where I was at. Definitely had those problems. And as a further note, men treat stalkers differently than women. Men, if she's beautiful, might just make her a girlfriend and just chalk her behavior up as compulsive or strange. But beautiful to a man is a good thing, and men don't feel physically threatened by a woman, so this is why men will treat it differently. But a woman, however, stalking behavior is a major no-no. Men can physically threaten women and cause physical harm, so it's a no-no. We don't want this, period. Okay, and I'm going to tell you what I did about each one of these as we go through them. The first stalker I had was at Texas A&M University. I was always clueless about women. I mean, in high school, yeah, I talked to women. I dated kind of, but kind of not. It wasn't until I got to college and I met my college sweetheart the first week of school, and I dated her the entire time. Okay, good woman, should have married her, should have kept her, but I was a dumb idiot. Okay, I don't blame her for the problems, I blame me. But anyhow, and some of you can relate, the men when they're in their early 20s are idiots. They all are. But let's get moving on with the story. A year after I broke up with my college sweetheart, I moved to Texas A&M, and I go to a bonfire. For those that don't know, bonfire is not just a little pile of logs. Sometimes they're 55 to 60 feet tall. And this is before the collapse of bonfire about 10 years ago. It was on the A&M campus, and it was a big party. Most of the college students would get drunk before they walked up, because since it's a college campus at that time, alcohol was not allowed. So you had to pregame. And I went and met some friends, and we pregamed, and we walked the 1.5 miles to the bonfire. A group of us did. On the way there, I started talking to a couple of different girls. And I was drunk, keep in mind, like everyone else. I pre-gamed. I did a good job pre-gaming. What I do remember when we got there, I was holding hands with one girl. A very nice looking blonde-haired girl with blue eyes. And while I'm talking to her, someone starts rubbing my back. Turns out her name was Julia. Okay? And I didn't want Julia rubbing my back. I wanted to talk to the girl I was talking to. Well, the girl looked up and recognized Julia because Julia was her roommate, and she walked off, and I never saw her again. Later that night, some things were a little fuzzy, but we're walking back to the apartment where we came from, and, you know, I've been drinking, and so the other guys, and we all had to relieve ourselves, so we walk into a park, and I peed on a cop. Go figure, right? My luck, I pee on a cop. Well, guess what happened? I got arrested, and I spent the night in jail. And I did get bailed out, and the thing came out okay because the cop never announced he was a cop. He violated the rules of conduct, so there's no record. And I did do some community service just to make things move quicker. the prosecuting attorney said, if I give you community service, we can drop everything because he didn't announce, and you have witnesses he didn't announce. So that ended up okay. Community service, I learned a few things in life. But when I got through with getting out of jail, I found out Julie was all frantic about me being in jail. And she started calling. And she started showing up in my parking lot and started leaving me notes on the door. And I talked to my friend at the time, and I said, how does Julia know my phone number? And she said, I gave Julia the phone number. You need a girl to date. And Julia wants to date you. So I gave her your phone number. And I had to remind her that this is beyond just dating. The girl doesn't stop. I have 10 messages from her a day. She's in my parking lot watching me come and go. So there's notes on my door all the time. Classic stalker behavior. Well, a couple of weeks, this goes on for a couple of weeks, and then I get sick, and I just don't go anywhere for the whole weekend. My roommate at the time saw her in the parking lot, went over and talked to her. Good roommate, by the way. And told her that I'm just not interested in her. And apparently she needed that talk, so she went away, and I didn't hear from her again. Yeah, that was Julia, my first experience with a stalker. Now we get to Jennifer. Jennifer was a Wiccan witch. And this is something I kind of knew, kind of didn't, because Jennifer lived next door to me. And a stalker who lives next door is really, really hard to identify. You don't really know they're stalking you until later. And that's how I found out later. Her current roommate, when they moved in next door to me, told me 3 or 4 years later. I ran into her at a bar, and she had a long talk with me and told me all about Jennifer and what she was doing and how dangerous she was around me. And I was just like, I had no clue. Because I'm clueless about women, go figure. But anyhow, Jennifer would come over, we'd play video games. She'd bring friends with her quite often, so we're all playing video games. We'd all go to dinner, we'd cook dinner together. You know, the typical thing you do when you have good neighbors who are friends, okay? Especially at that age, I was like 23, 24 at the time. And I thought nothing about it. Then this roommate we were talking about, the one I met at the bar, moved out. Okay, she was dating one of the guys and just broke up and moved off. Well, when she moved out, a girl named Lori moved in. Okay, now Lori was dating a guy named Gooch. We're not going to talk about Gooch, but she was dating Gooch at the time, and it was fine. I just got to know Lori. I got to know Gooch. I already knew Jennifer, and she's just joined into the circle of friends, and we're having conversations, and we're getting to know each other. But it turns out Gooch was a little abusive, and she walked away from him, kicked him out of her life, decided I'm going alone. And at that time, she needed a shoulder to talk on. You're going to notice a pattern here with a couple of these girls. And I'm one of these people that's really easy to talk to, and I listened, so she ended up talking to me a lot, and Lori started spending a lot of time with me. Now, I would have loved to date Lori. Beautiful little girl. I call her little because she was like 4'10", and about 90 pounds, 80 pounds. Tiny little girl. Beautiful, though. And I didn't try to date her because I knew she had been abused in the last relationship. She needed a friend more than a boyfriend. But I spent a lot of time with her. I made it obvious that if she ever changed her mind, she could, but I wouldn't cross that line unless she wanted me to. Well, this got Jennifer enraged, and I didn't know any of this. At one point, there was a convention, a comic book convention in Dallas, and we all went together up there. I rented a hotel room because I had a job. They were college students, and I told Lori and a couple others they could come and go out of my room, and gave them keys. And at one time, Jennifer just showed up at my room while I was sleeping and slept in the bed next to me. And I found that a little strange, and it put me off a little bit, especially since she knew I was talking to Lori quite a bit. But if fast forward a couple of weeks later, and Lori's dad comes and gets her because she's failing all of her classes. So she leaves. Then Jennifer gets a new roommate, a couple of guys. They were gay guys. And that is another long story about Jennifer and the two gay men. We're not going to share that here right now. But During this time period, while Jennifer lived next door, I would come home sometime to candles burning on my front porch. And sometimes, while the candles were burning, there was a circle of bones or circles around the candle and some diagrams here and there. And I never put two and two together that she was a Wiccan and that those were love spells until her early roommate, who I cannot remember her name, please forgive me if you ever find this video, sat me down and said those were love spells. She was casting love spells to get me to pay attention to her. Well, Jennifer ended up marrying one of the two guys who were her roommate, and again, that's another story. And she moved on, and I have not heard from her since. Well, we're up to stalker number 3. Her name was Keri. I called her Trouble. Reason I called her Trouble is she was just always around and always playing little pranks and stuff, so she was trouble. Wasn't bad, wasn't annoying. I found her attractive and fun to talk to, so it was all good. But let's get into the story. Keri came to me seeking help from math. And I'm a math tutor, I'm a physics tutor, I'm a statistics tutor. It's what I've done for a living for decades. And I'm good at my job. And I was helping her with the class, and she scheduled some private tutoring. And when you're scheduled for private tutoring, that's when I get to know people well. And I got to know that she was married. She was married to an ex-Marine who'd just come back from Iraq. So that gives you a time frame on this. And he was abusive. He was not a good husband. He was smacked her around a little bit. Nothing that would leave a mark, nothing too hard. It's just that if she would say something or do something he didn't like, there'd be a little bit of a slap. Okay? I never hit a woman. Never once, never would. I don't care how angry my ex tried to make me. I never hit her. You don't hit women. And I told her that's kind of crossing a line. And when we got to know each other well enough, I started saying, you need to get rid of this man. Go talk to your family, go talk to your friends, get their opinion, not just mine. Well, after that, she disappeared for a while. And a couple of months later, she was sitting in my car when I got off work. To put this in context, she worked at a bookstore 3 stores over from mine, where my office was. And we got off work about the same time. She knew it, and I knew it from the tutoring. So she just came after work and sat on my car and waited for me. And I found out she'd gotten divorced. Well, over the next 3 or 4 weeks, she'd start showing up a little bit more and a little bit more. She would start leaving me notes saying, I want to come by when you're off work. I would wait for her sometimes if I got off work early. And we just became really good friends, talking a lot, got to know her a lot. I kept calling her Trouble because, again, she liked to pull a little prank. She liked to talk to me. And she was really good companion. So good that after a couple of months of this, I decided to ask her out on a date, especially since she was there all the time, kind of like a stalker would be. Well, when I asked her out on the date, she disappeared for a month. And I found that a little strange, but didn't really worry about it too much because everyone has their free will and their choice. But she showed back up on my car one night. And the pattern started up again. Slowly, she built up trust with me and started showing up a lot and talking to me a lot, sending me notes, sending me short text messages like, I'm coming after work, things like that. And I didn't worry about it because, again, I had fun talking to her. I liked being around her. Well, I asked her on a date again. After a couple of months of that, she vanished again. Waited a little bit and she showed back up. We repeated this process about 4 times. She did go out with me once, just once. We met and ate dinner. But after that, she came back as a friend and made it pretty clear it was a friend. Now, about this time, Harry Potter book 4 came out. I think it was book 4, could have been book 5. But they were doing a pre-sale at a bookstore, and I knew about it, so I got myself 30th on the list really early because I knew they were signing up. And when the day of the book came, I walk over to the store and there's like 300 people in line. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, she worked at a big bookstore. She was assistant manager. And I didn't think much of it because I had talked to her a couple of days before and she said, you're going to get your book. You're on the list. Well, when I finally get in, and don't stress and fight with the crowd, I was told by the people in charge of the list, I don't get a book. I had to be in that line waiting. And of course that upset me a little bit because I don't want to wait 4 weeks to get a book. So I went and found Keri and had to talk with her, and apparently I rubbed her wrong because that was the last I heard of Keri. And now we get to stalker number 4. He was a gay man. And this let me experience a female stalker and a male stalker. The women were not physically threatening, and for the most part, when events happened, they went away. But the guys, when they get like this, you need to do something about it. It can be quite scary, and mine was. Okay? Now, I first noticed something's wrong when my dog, who was 15 years old at the time, would start growling at the window, just staring straight at the window. She was blind, so it wasn't something she saw, it was something she heard. And she never really gave me false alarms ever in her life. So that told me something was wrong. I wasn't sure if it was an animal or if it was a person or just my neighbors coming home. So I started paying attention to everything outside, and I noticed some of the stuff around my windows and in my back porch were being moved. That told me it was a person looking through the window. And I was worried about my house being broken into and things stolen. I really didn't have much in the house to be stolen, so I don't know what they would have taken. Okay? This was starting to escalate, so I talked to my neighbors. My neighbors told me they would occasionally see a man climbing the fence and going in my backyard. And I asked them to start calling the police. And when the dog would start growling, I would call the police. The first 5 or 6 times I called the police, they'd come out, take a report, and they'd go home. But you can imagine this is getting frequent. This isn't just like once every month. This is once every 2 or 3 days this is happening. And it's escalating. And after the 15th or so phone call to the police, I had an officer come out and tell me, I'm writing you a citation for obstructing justice. A couple of more of these and we put you in jail. You are sick. You are unwell. You need to seek counseling. Do not seek attention by talking to us. And I went to my neighbors and said, have you called the police? And they said, yes, the police told us you were crazy, that you have a problem, so we're not calling the police anymore because they threatened us. That told me things were getting bad because I'm losing my police protection. Along with this, at that time, my dog passed away. She was 15 years old, so it was not unexpected. She was ill. She could hardly walk. And it was just something that was going to happen. When she passed away, it escalated. He started breaking into the house. I came home one day, my underwear drawers pulled open, and all my underwear's gone. So I had to go buy new underwear. Fortunately, Walmart's open all night. Another day I came home, all my clothes are on the floor at my dresser. I was told I can't call the police, so what do? About 2 weeks later, I came home, and the heater on my aquarium had been turned up to maximum. It was 130 degrees in that aquarium, and all the fish were dead. At that point, I knew I had to do something, and I had to get out of there. So I called my mom and dad and asked to borrow their dog. It's a boxer mix, a very big boxer mix. And my mom's like, no, I'm not letting you borrow my dog. She's my sweetheart. My dad convinced my mom to let me borrow the dog, saying it's temporary. He will give the dog back. He is going to move. And he told me that I had to move. So I started looking for a place to live, found a house I could buy in North Bryan, and I did. I moved to North Bryan. It was a poor neighborhood, mainly Hispanic, a few black people here and there. And it was kind of a safe neighborhood, but kind of not. They stole anything that wasn't bolted down in your front yard. But that is the way it is in a poor neighborhood. The people were fairly nice. And the only thing I never really understood about the neighborhood was Tejano music at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, and a bunch of drunk Mexicans passed out everywhere by 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and in bed by 10 p.m. It was really like living life backwards, but that's what they did. Eventually, he found me with county records as far as I can tell because my name was on the house. And one day I saw his white van down the street, and I started panicking a little bit. Went on to work, came home, started making plans. The next day I'm going to work. There's his white van again. But this time there's 3 black kids with bats beating on that van, screaming, "You don't belong, get out." He was ghost white in that van. And that's the only time I really saw his face. I never saw him again. My solution to the bad stalker was to move and get out of there. That's extreme, but it might be what you have to do, especially if the police are uncooperative. Okay, you don't want to escalate violence. You want a way, because these people are unhinged. You don't know what they're going to do. Okay, I don't recommend moving to a neighborhood and paying black people to beat on his van, but it was effective. I'm not going to argue with that. It's one of the moments of my life I'm never going to forget, is seeing those bats hitting that van and his face in pure panic. Well, I hope you enjoyed this stories and found it useful or helpful or at least entertaining. Like and subscribe, please.